morning, good afternoon, good evening. Zimbabwe is a failed state. I've said this before, and I'll say it again, because it is true. This is at the heart of Zimbabwe's problem. We are a failed state. We have to address that problem. We have to understand why we got to be a failed state, and hopefully how we can get out. When you listen to the likes of blessed Geza, you immediately realize why we are a failed state. And what is more, that the likes of Geza will never get us out, will only drag the whole nation deeper and deeper into the morals. Here is Geza speaking.
Against the 2030 slogan?
Yeah, I'm very much against. I think from my last interview, now that this is bullshit. You know? This is bullshit.
But you yes.
Fighters. One went up in the State House.
But you were two guys. Robert Kapio Mugabe was your guy.
Fuck off, man. When we say my war veterans, right? Our man nationalists, don't are my war veterans. You know?
What's the difference?
I'm not prepared to expand. Yeah.
This is where we are. Zimbabwe is a failed state. 45 years after independence, the country has been drifting deeper and deeper into this economic and political hell on earth, all due to gross mismanagement, rampant corruption, and tyrannical rule, where the freedoms and rights of ordinary citizens have been ignored in pursuit of power. Does Geza appreciate that we are a failed state? Clearly he doesn't. All he cares about is that Mugabe had this chance to rule, and then Mnangagwa, and now he wants to impose another dictator. He doesn't know why we are a failed state. He himself, by now, 45 years after independence, the penny should have dropped that he and his fellow liberation war veterans are the ones who have imposed Mugabe and Zanu PF on the nation. If we go back to 1980, when the country attained its independence, at the Lancaster House, all the parties agreed that the freedom fighters will be withdrawn from the field during the campaign period. They will be sent to the assembly points. Zanu PF signed to that agreement. But by the time they got back to Zimbabwe, they instructed their freedom fighters that some of them would go to assembly points and others will remain in the field. And they remained there during the campaign period. And their message to the people was very simple. If ZANU PF does not win the election, the Bush war would continue. So clearly from that point, one could see these freedom fighters were not after one man, one vote. They wanted power. And if they don't get it, they'll go back to the war. Of course, the ordinary Zimbabweans had no choice. They chose to end the war. They voted for ZANU PF, believing that that will end the war, not knowing that this was only the beginning. Because ZANU PF did indeed win the 1980 elections, but no sooner they got their legs under the desk that they were already planning on how to consolidate their power. In 1983, Mugabe launched the infamous Kukurawundi. The primary purpose of Kukurawundi was to force PF SAPU, the only other political party in the country that challenged ZANU PF for power. It was to force PF SAPU to give up the party. And in 1987, PF SAPU leaders finally relented and signed the Unity Accord, which united PF SAPU with ZANU PF. And this cleared the way for Mugabe to impose the de facto one-party state that has ruled the country to this day. People like our friend here, Geza, and his war veterans, he played his role. They all played their role in the creation and imposition and retention of the ZANU PF dictatorship. Zimbabwe is a failed state because we've been stuck with a dictatorship. That is the problem. And after being stuck for 45 years, it is no surprise that the country is in a real economic mess. In 2017, the economic situation was really desperate. People were desperate for change. ZANU PF war veterans themselves, be they in the army, in the police, in the CIO, and the many who had already either retired or were demobilized soon after independence, were living in abject poverty because the economy was not performing. We're getting restless. When the 2017 military coup was staged, the nation thought this would open a new chapter. Alas, it did not. Because all we had then was a group of war veterans who decided, who had backed up Mugabe all these years, who decided, no, it's now time for Mugabe to go. They wanted a new leader. And so Mugabe was finally put out after 37 years in power. And the very men and women who had kept him in power are the ones who put him out. And they are the ones who imposed Mnangagwa. Mnangagwa was never elected by the people of Zimbabwe. When he got into power, he promised to hold free, fair, and credible elections. But a few months later, after the coup, he rigged the elections. The 2018 elections were rigged. And the very people who helped him get into power helped him rig the elections. The war veterans, those in the army, the police, the CIO, everyone, they played their part. And it is interesting to note that now, hardly 10 years since the military coup of 2017, the economy has not revived, and hence the pressure for change has been growing. And surprise, surprise, one group in the ZANU PF have now come out and decided they want Mnangagwa to go. They now believe Mnangagwa is corrupt and incompetent and should be removed. But their solution is they want to impose a leader, one of their own. As Geza tells us, Mugabe and Mnangagwa were nationalists. They did not carry the gun. They want somebody to be president who carried the gun. The very men who had imposed Mugabe and Mnangagwa all these years, this is just a feeble excuse to justify retaining the dictatorship. It is an argument born out of the failure to realize that Zimbabwe is a failed state precisely because we have a dictatorship. During India's fight for independence, one of the key points that the Indian nationalists, Gandhi and others, raised was what kind of leaders would an armed struggle throw up? It was a rhetorical question. And I think anyone at all with half a brain knew the answer to that. If you've been a child in the playing field, you know about bullies. And you also know that if you allow bullies to ride roughshod over you, you're in trouble. You are in serious trouble. Because the thing about bullies is They will demand an inch. You give them an inch and they will take a foot. And tomorrow they'll be back demanding a foot. Give them a foot, they'll take 3 feet. And you know they'll be back, making more and more outrageous demands. It's never ending. But what made that question a rhetorical question? You know that if you go into the armed struggle, the kind of leaders the armed struggle will throw up are the type of individuals who think and who believe that mighty is right. Man is a creature of reason. Everybody knows that the might are not always right. Zimbabwe, 45 years after independence, we know that the mighty are not right. Zimbabwe is a failed state precisely because we had individuals who believed they were right and everybody else should have no say. And they've dragged the nation deeper and deeper into this economic and political mess. The question now is, are we going to keep on allowing these individuals to impose their will on the nation? A lot of people are getting excited about Geza and his friends. They've promised a signal. And many people are waiting for it. This is just a repeat of 2017, when people went out on the street in support of the military coup, only for the coup leaders to turn around and impose Mnangagwa. Nothing changed. Geza and friends will impose Chiwenga, and the dictatorship will continue. The gross mismanagement, the rampant corruption, the tyrannical oppression will continue. Geza has no clue why Zimbabwe is a failed state. And therefore, it's not surprising that he has no clue what to do about it. All he wants is power. All he wants is an opportunity to be in State House. Zimbabwe does not belong to only those who fought in the Liberation War. The message we should have learned by now is that those who fought in the Liberation War are not the only ones who should have a say in the governance of the country. We should all have a say, a meaningful say in the governance of the country. We should have had alarm bells ringing when Mugabe and his cronies say that if they don't win the 1980 elections, the Bush War would continue. The alarm bells should have started ringing straight away. We have had 45 years of this tyrannical rule we really need to step up and say no. Whatever signal Geza and friends sent out, the people of Zimbabwe should not respond to it. Geza and friends, all they want to do is replace one dictator with another. The dictatorship itself will remain. He and his friends have enjoyed absolute power this last 45 years. As war veterans, they felt they have the veto on who governs Zimbabwe. And this has been at the heart of our problem. They've been able to impose Mugabe for 37 years. They removed Mugabe and imposed Mnangagwa. And now they are tired of Mnangagwa. They want to impose another dictator. We have to stop this cycle of madness. We want a country in which all Zimbabweans have a meaningful say in the governance of the country. Being a war veteran does not give you the divine right to rule the country. And we should not be so short-sighted to look only at, oh, Geza is finally getting rid of Mnangagwa, and therefore we should give him our support. We should have the far vision to realize that he's only replacing one dictator with another. The dictatorship itself, as long as it remains, it really doesn't matter which dictator is ruling. Many people will now argue that Mugabe was better than Mnangagwa. To be quite honest, there's no difference. A dictator like Mugabe and Mnangagwa are no different than a black mamba and a cobra to a cornered mouse. The mouse knows that a bite from either will kill it. We are to have another dictator. We know that he has no clue what is wrong with the country's economy. He is not going to stop corruption. All he wants is his chance to be in power and to loot. How anyone can think or believe, even for 1 minute, that is the solution, beggars belief. We have been here before. We should not repeat the same mistake. To Geza and friends, you are the ones who imposed Robert Mugabe. And then you imposed Mnangagwa. You should have the humility to accept that you made a mistake and stop interfering and believing that you have the divine right or the veto to decide who governs the country. You have failed, the system has failed, and let's change the system. We are not interested in just changing the dictator. We want to change to end the dictatorship itself. And we should not take our side our eyes from that ball. If all we manage to do is remove Mnangagwa and replace him with Chwenga, then we have failed. We have learned absolutely nothing from the past. We have only sought to appease the dictators, the tyrants, in the hope that tomorrow will be better. This has not worked in the past, and it's not going to work now. The right to a meaningful say in the governance of the country is more than just a right. It is the essence of good governance. And by God, Zimbabwe deserves a period of good governance, an end to this madness of bad governance. And we really need to do something about that. We cannot continue repeating the same mistake of a dictatorship time and time again. It's madness. It's insane. In this day and age, we're still failing to define a political system that delivers freedom and rights of all our people. We are failing to govern ourselves. That is at the heart of it. And one of the reasons why that is so is because we have got leaders who think they have the divine right to rule, when in reality they don't. No one has the divine right to rule. By now, Geza and friends should know that as much as they have exercised the veto to decide who rules Zimbabwe, the truth of the matter is that has not solved Zimbabwe's economic, social, and political problems. It has only exacerbated them. It is that veto that created the de facto one-party state, sustained it all these years. We must dismantle the de facto one-party state. It is that simple. I've got a comment here from Edwin. He says, and how can we change or remove this system when you have no plan except to live on your tube? Well, I've got, you're welcome to your comment. If you think that by supporting Geza, you're removing it, just as you did in 2017, then all I'm saying to you, you're wrong. There is nothing wrong with an honest debate on issues. I said before, man is a creature of reason. One of the reasons why we are a failed state is we have had a regime that has stifled meaningful debate and democratic discourse. That is what we must end. Repeating the same mistake of 2017, which is what you're proposing here, is not solving the problem. And I must emphasize that. I've got another comment there saying, well, the key into our being oppressed is hate speech. I could not agree with you. anymore. You're absolutely right. Hate speech has been a problem in Zimbabwe, particularly coming from ZANU PF. ZANU PF has imposed on a nation this culture that only ZANU PF people have the right to be heard, and everybody else, we should be silent. And the whole political system has been geared in such a way that only ZANU PF voices are heard. And so for the best part of the last 45 years, we have heard from ZANU PF and no one else. And hence the reason why I was saying ZANU PF have stifled meaningful debate and democratic discourse. We are irrational people. Human beings are a creature of reason. There is no reason why we should continue to allow this to happen. Particularly because change, the best way to bring about change is by bringing about political change. I believe in what Ghana's first president, Kwame Nkrumah, once said, that you should seek the political kingdom and the rest will be given unto you. We seek to have a meaningful say in the governance of the country. Only then can we meaningfully help to define that nation's destiny. And I think that is where we have failed ourselves. We have been participating in these flawed elections, even when we have been warned that doing so will only give ZANU PF legitimacy. Why? We have been warned here that Geza and his friends are only interested in swapping one dictator with another. Why are we getting all excited about when is Geza sending the signal? Because when he does send the signal and people go out in the street in their thousands, he will read that as legitimacy, that he is right to impose a new dictator. You can't turn around to him and say, no, we want free, fair, and credible election. He will turn around and look at the number of people who supported me. Proof that I've got the people behind me. We know that Geza and his colleagues, all they want is power. He has no clue why Zimbabwe is a failed state. He has no clue that he and his colleagues are the ones who dragged the nation into this mess by imposing first Mugabe and then Mnangagwa. And now, given half a chance, he will impose Chiwenga. He has no clue what is going on. So why are we supporting somebody who has no clue what is going on? I think Zimbabweans owe it to themselves to wake up and make sure that we do not have a repeat of what happened in 2017, where we supported the military coup when all it was seeking to do is change one dictator for another. We are not interested in swapping dictators. What we want is an end to the dictatorship itself. Thank you very much for those who were able to join, and hope you'll be able to do it again. 6 o'clock UK time, 8 o'clock Zimbabwean time. Have a good day.